Hey guys, what's up? It's me, Samslo33, and welcome to the Pokemon TCG show, Mix Up. And today we're going to be talking about Garbodor, one of the new decks coming out of Dragon Exalted. Garbodor is a very disruptive Pokemon. There's a lot of cards that he can work with. Most of them don't use abilities. Actually, none of them do. But anyway, before I talk about Garbodor, I should also say that the Pokemon Trading Card game online is back online. And yeah, it was very exciting. It was gone in the summer, but now it's back, and it's better. Better is a word I can use. It's not good, but it's better. I've noticed a couple glitches are still there. Like for example, I use Darkrai. Sometimes, like when I use Darkrai's Dark Cloak, it doesn't work, and then sometimes it does. It just for some reason it doesn't work on Sableye for some reason, and then. Special Metal Energy, which is still in the format, or still in the program because the Heart Gold Silver stuff isn't out yet. It's not, it's not gone yet. The Special Metal reduced by 20. The only explanation I could possibly think is because I was using Night Spear and it reduced, I don't even know. It's really confusing and stupid, but out of 8 Dark Explorers packs I got 2 Darkrai EX in the first pack and 1 Raikou EX, so none of them full art, but still really exciting. So, Garbodor. Pretty cool. Let's go talk about them in the... I don't even know what that section's called. Let's go talk about them right now. So obviously the first thing we gotta do is look at Garbodor's stats. He's got 100 HP, Psychic Weakness, 3 retreat cost, which aren't the best stats. He can be sniped by Raikou EX. The Psychic Weakness is bad because Mewtwo EX can KO in one hit with just 3 energies. And the 3 retreat cost is not too great, but at least he's good with Heavy Ball, which a lot of his partners are as well. His attack is very bad, 3 for 6, yeah, it's just awful. But his ability, Garbotoxin, is of course the best part of this card. It says, basically, when a tool is attached to Garbodor, all Pokemons in play, in the hand, or in the discard have no abilities except for Garbodor and Garbotoxin or whatever. So, yes, that shuts off all abilities. This completely shuts off Eels, Hydreigon, Ninetales, Selgorth, the running Gothitelle. It even hinders stuff like Garchomp, Empoleon, Straight Darkrai. It's just a really great ability, Garbotoxin. And of course there is a very easy counter to this, which is Tool Scrapper, just discard the Tool card. And there's nothing you can really do about that except for one deck I'll be talking about later, but that one has its flaws. And of course there is the Mewtwo, which everyone runs. But since they usually won't have Energy Acceleration because of lack of abilities, they should be able to get it out that fast. Now for the Trubbish you should pick, the Noble Victories one has a really great attack that says put a card from your discard pile on top of your deck, and it also has 1 retreat cost, which are very great things to have from basic, but it does have 60 HP, which means it's vulnerable to Darkrai types. The Dragon's Exalted one has 70 HP and 2 pretty awful attacks and 2 retreat costs. So this one's up to personal opinion. I've seen people use both. I personally like the Noble Victories one. It can get you out of supported route or something like that. So of course, seems a really good choice in my opinion. Now for the tools that you should put onto Garbodor. Eviolite, Dark Claw, and EXP Share are obviously completely useless, and you should only attach them if your deck already runs the tools. So that leaves Rescue Scarf, which helps you cycle through Garbodors. If they keep getting KO'd, you can just put it back in your hand. If you already have a Trubbish in play, then this is just really easy. You just get knocked out, and you evolve it, attach it to the tool, play down the Trubbish, and bam, no way to stop it. It's probably the best of the 3 that are actually semi-useful on him. Giant Cape is the next one. This protects him from Raikou EX snipes, which of course is a very good card, Eels. Now, of course, the ability shutting off makes it hard for Raikou to surprise KO like that. But you might say, well, I can just use Tool Scrapper to get that off. Well, then they'd have 100 HP and you can knock them out. So, I don't know. Giant Cape could be a decent idea. Rocky Helmet is definitely inferior to the other 2, but it can set up KOs if the opponent decides to catch her and KO it. So, might be wanting to consider, test out, but I'm not sure how well it does. Now, the main variant of Garbodor that has been talked about is Terrakion. Now, of course, Terrakion is a very low maintenance attacker that needs no abilities, doesn't have an ability, so you just keep using your Mono Terrakion style deck, but there's a Garbodor in there to disrupt. And of course, this is the main variant since Terrakion is just such a good attacker. So, yeah. So, now I'm going to talk about a skeleton list that I provided. I'm going to focus less about the basic stuff that you already know, like the search cards and whatever, because you already know what those do. And the videos have been getting quite long, so I think I'm just going to cut to the more interesting things rather than talking about like, oh, this is 3 search cards, this is good for Garbodor, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, the 3 line for Garbodor should be fine. I mean, you will be cycling through it with Rescue Scarf, and you don't really want to start with a Trubbish anyway. So, again, 33 should be fine. And of course, the null victories Trubbish would be a good idea. Mewtwo EX and Terrakion EX are both, of course, really great attackers in this deck. Terrakion just loves the energy acceleration, and Mewtwo is good against Mewtwo, so yeah, normal things to put in Terrakion decks, and they're just both really great. EX-Feature is still a very useful card, even with Terrakion EX to help with your energy acceleration. It's a really great tool to attach to Garbodor, so I think EX-Feature will be required in this deck, even with Terrakion EX. Switch is because all of your Pokemon have really high retreat, and 4 would be a really great thing to have. And switches do go by really fast in this new format with no junk arm, so 4 is a definitely nice thing to have. Now for the supporters, 4 Juniper, 4 N, and for the last one I said 2 or 3 Random Receiver and 2 or 3 Bianca. This is just because I don't know which is better, the 3 Bianca or 3 Random Receiver over the 2. So whichever you prefer. I personally prefer more actual supporters because they leave less supporter drought, but some people really don't like Bianca, so I don't know. Maybe you could go with Random Receiver, I don't know. I only chose 2 DC instead of like 3 or 4, which would normally be what you'd use with Mewtwo. But Terrakion EX can set up Mewtwo by itself, so you shouldn't need the double color synergy as much as you might think you would. Alright, so let's look at the matchups of the Garbodor deck. Against Dark Hydreigon, this is probably one of your best matchups. The deck uses 2 abilities, which are both really great abilities that, force the whole deck to be good. And of course, Darkrai EX is weak to Terrakion, it can be KO'd in 1 hit. So very powerful there. And it kind of forces them to just go straight Darkrai if they don't run Tool Scrapper, which is good because that means more death to them. Electric, this is another good matchup just because they have no energy acceleration. They can set up with DCE and use like Mewtwo and Registeel and whatnot. But Eels is really not the same deck without energy acceleration. Garchomp, I said in the Garchomp video that this match was favorable to Garchomp, but I'd say it's more about even. I mean, Garchomp does 1-hit KO Garbodor, and he does KO Terrakions with Altarias in play. And the lock does hurt Garchomp a lot, since, it needs so many abilities to use, and no Dragon Call means it's a lot slower setup, and the deck usually doesn't have space for Tool Scrapper, and Garchomp's just not that great in the first place. But just a straight 100 or 60 damage every turn is not going to help the deck at all, and they can't keep capturing your Garbodors, they have to attack the Terrakion at some point, so this isn't the worst matchup. Against straight Terrakion, this is a really bad matchup just because it's basically a mirror match, but you have like 6 to 10 dead cards in your deck, which is anywhere from a 10th of your deck to a 6th of your deck, so that is not a good thing to have in my opinion. Entei, this is another pretty bad matchup since Garbodor is basically useless and the healing in Entei could screw you over, but Entei doesn't have quite as much healing as it used to because of the loss of Moo Milk, Life Herb, and Junk Arm. But even then, Terrakion non-EX exchanges prizes with it decently. It should be a 3-hit KO unless they use 2 potions, which is a lot of resources. Against Darkrai, this match is very favorable just because of the weakness, and they have no free retreat. Pretty simple. It's Darkrai versus Terrakion. Who you think's going to win? Empoleon, this one's, I don't know, even slightly unfavorable. The ability, they don't really need it, and if they can Tool Scrap your tool just once and use 1 Diving Draw, then that might be enough to get them going. But you can keep your bench slightly lower than most decks, so this matchup could definitely be much grimmer for this deck. Ninetales is another very favorable matchup since it relies on just so many abilities that this is ridiculous. Without Bright Luck, they can't bring after Garbodor as easily since the deck usually runs less catchers. And without Amoonguss, it's just, it's 20 damage every turn. That's awful. So, really, it's not even like it's like basically an auto win, honestly. And against the Selgor, this one's hard to say. I'd say it's a little favorable. Basically, whoever gets out the lock first will usually win, since, they both hinder you in different ways. Gothitelle obviously is very good against Terrakion decks, and that means you can't attach tools to Garbodor. But with Garbodor out, they can't use the lock to stop you from using your tools and whatnot. So it depends on whether they run Tool Scrapper or not, probably, is going to decide the match. But Gothitelle is harder to maintain than just attaching a tool. And in testing, it doesn't seem like Gothitelle is gotten out that much, probably only once or twice per game, which of course is enough time for you to be able to attach a tool and set up the lock. So I'd say this match is definitely good. So far the matchups look pretty good. Out of the decks, it has about 5 good matchups and 3 or 4 bad matchups,
one of those could be even or not, or two of those could be even or not. So matchups are actually very good looking, but I don't know. Just I think testing and tournament results will tell if this card or this deck is good or not. There's some other variants of the deck I'd like to talk about. First one is the one and only Durant. Yep, Durant's got a new tool, get it to play with, and I couldn't be happier. Since Durant was my favorite deck in the last season, he's just incredibly fun deck to play, and I love him so much. And he kind of fell off the radar, and he sucked. But anyway, Garbodor adds a lot more disruption to the deck, prevents Darkrai from giving things free retreat for preventing you from stall. You can run Cobalion, which is a good card with Garbodor, since you can prevent them from using Energy Acceleration or Dark Cloak to retreat out of the Iron Breaker lock. But with Garbodor in the deck, that does remove a lot of the disruption cards. It'd be harder to fit in hammers and revives and all the EP lights and catchers and whatever. So it's probably just a pipe dream of mine to have Durant back in action again. Substrika from Next Destinies is, of course, one of the best ideas since it locks trainers and you can also lock abilities. It stops Tool Scrapper and Catcher from stopping the lock. But, of course, Substrika's flaw is that it does such awful damage. The reason it worked in Eels for a short time is that, Eels has other attackers and Disconnect just mainly stops them from setting up. But with Garbodor, it's just like, oh, here's 40 damage every turn. I'm sure you can totally not get through this whatsoever. I'm done freaking stoppable. No. Okay. And the last one I'd like to talk about is Behemoth. Now, Behemoth is probably the best disruption Pokemon we have right now. I guess there is Sableye with hammers, but out of the hand, Behemoth is definitely the best we have. You can get rid of Scrappers or Switches or Supporters to get out of lock and stuff. But obviously the problem with disruption decks is that they don't do much damage or no damage. So you have to find another attacker and you already run 2 stage 1 lines. So it's probably just going to be a fun leak deck, but disruption decks are always a fun thing to think about. So Garbodor, how does it fare up? I think it should be around the tier 1 to 1.5 area. It might seem like it's a lot of good assets to it, but it has not been doing well at all in Japan. I'm not quite sure why. It seems like a very good deck. Maybe it's just not that great at all, and these are just speculations, and it's, clunkier than we think it is or whatever, or it's harder to maintain the lock, but still. I think it's gonna be decent, probably better than will in Japan. We found decks in the past that have just flown over our heads before, so it should be good. Personally, I don't think Garbodor is my style of deck. Disruption is just not how I roll, unless it's Durant, because Durant is awesome. But it still could be a fun one to try out.
And there you go, that's Garbodor in a nutshell. Quite a lot of variants, probably only the Terrakion one will work competitively. The Durant one maybe, but I don't know. There just aren't that many amazing Pokemon for Garbodor, but Terrakion I think should be good enough for him for now. But I'm sure there will be plenty of Pokemon in the future that can work well with Garbodor. Maybe we'll be like the Vileplume of this era will just like come back at random times and be like, whoa, where'd that come from? I don't know. But yeah, next week, I don't know. I just don't. I don't feel like thinking of it right now. Sorry. So again, PTCGO is back, so better go redeem those codes now. There's a free one for you. Lol, just kidding, that's already been used. Alright, so until next time, I'm gonna go take out the trash, because these things are pretty useless now. Later.